Well, it's October again. That magical time of year when booktubers begin to think about horror. In the past, I've been very bad about doing Halloween reads during the month of October. And the reason is the standard reason for this channel. I read very slowly, and I always have like 5 or 6 books I'm halfway through reading that I'm supposed to be finishing, and I'm never in like a good position to start a new book. I do quite often start new books, but I shouldn't. That plus the other perennial problem with this channel, I'm living out here in Vietnam, so access to books is a little bit touch and go. That all that being said, this year I did seriously think about trying to read a horror book for the month of October. And perhaps if I had been in a bookstore October 1st, things would have been a little bit different. But the way my current commute is set up between work and home, it's a bit out of the way for me to get to an English bookstore. And I've been thinking this year about doing Dracula, actually. I am overdue to do Dracula. Frankenstein, I read about 4 years ago, I think. 4 years ago, if memory serves, and reviewed it on this channel. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I haven't done a video on that. I reviewed that on my blog about 10 years ago. But yeah, Dracula I did as an audiobook back when I was 22, which is, I hate to say it, over 20 years ago now, so I'm due to reread it just because time has passed. But I'm also due to reread it because I did it as an audiobook, and I don't know if I fully absorbed it doing it as an audiobook. I remember specifically the very end of it, I felt like I wasn't following it very well on the audiobook. And I know Dracula has been popular in this little corner of BookTube. There's a Dracula read-along going on. So, overdue for read or reread of Dracula. If I had been in a bookstore on October 1st, I might have picked up a copy of Dracula. As it happens, we were out running some errands today, and I was in a bookstore today that had a smattering of English books. The selection is always limited in Vietnam. But I was looking, seeing what horror books there were, and there was Frankenstein, but I read Frankenstein already and reviewed it on this channel already. There was Dracula, but it looked a little bit thick, and it's already October 19. And I'm a slow reader, and I thought, especially being as busy as I am right now, I'm not sure I'm going to finish that before Halloween. But then there was The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, and I thought, this is probably doable. A nice slim volume. I could, I'm a slow reader, so even a slim volume like this might be pushing it a little bit since I've only left myself 10 days before Halloween. But, just in the time between when I bought this afternoon and now when I'm filming this video, I've already gotten 28 pages read. So, going good so far. It's only 207 pages. I'm going to make this a priority to finish this before Halloween. I'm just, everything else I'm reading is just going to get sidelined until I finish this. And then the goal will be to review this before Halloween. Now, I would say maybe review it on Halloween if I was still single. But now they've got 2 kids, I no longer control my own schedule. You other parents will know what it's like, I'm sure. So just anytime I get a chance between now and before Halloween, I'll try and finish this up and then review it sometime before the end of October. This is actually a reread for me because I did read this once before, sometime in middle school. I forget exactly when, either 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. I forget. Um, it's funny. I remember very little of the book from when I read it, and you know, I guess that was like some 30 years ago now, 30 plus years ago. Um, so I guess you would expect to forget things. I mean, I do remember kind of the experience of reading it. I remember what the cover looked like. I remember carrying it around with me. I took it on a family vacation, so we were flying in an airplane and I had it with me. I remember trying to read it on the airplane, and I remember I was sitting next to some random woman. I guess the family seating must have gotten a little bit split up. And she was reading some like airport romance novel. And I remember just feeling smugly superior to her because I was only an adolescent, 11 or 12, and yet I was reading a classic and she was reading an airport romance. I count H.G. Wells as classic. You know, he's before World War One. And I especially counted H.G. Wells as a classic author because my introduction to H.G. Wells was those classic illustrated series, or I think they're called Great Classics Illustrated. You know these books, right? They're classic works of literature that are simplified with really easy English for young children to read, and they've got a picture on one side and kind of simplified text on the other. And my sister got given a big collection of those books for Christmas one year by one of the relatives, which was technically her books, but we both devoured them. And in the collection were two books by H.G. Wells, The Time Machine and War of the Worlds. And based on those books, I mean, I didn't read the original versions of either of those books until I was in my 30s. But just based on the classic illustrated versions of those books, which I loved, I decided I was going to be I decided I really liked H.G. Wells. So The Invisible Man was one of the first H.G. Wells books I tracked down. The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine I didn't track down because I felt like I had already read them with the Classics Illustrated version. But The Invisible Man was not part of that Classic Illustrated collection. This was when I was going to the bookstore for H.G. Wells books. This was the first one that attracted me. That plus, round about that same time, middle school, I was developing an interest in the Universal monster movies, you know, those classic monster movies from the 30s and 40s. And of course, The Invisible Man, and I think it had a couple sequels, The Invisible Man Returns or something, were part of those classic Universal monster movies. The Invisible Man never had any team-ups with any of the other monsters, so he wasn't part of like the shared universe of Dracula and Frankenstein, at least in those original movies. I think he has a cameo appearance in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, if that counts. But other than that, the Invisible Man wasn't part of the shared universe, but he was definitely part of the classic Universal monster movies. So with that connection, I was also eager to check out this book. I don't remember if I saw the classic movie first or the book first, but one way or the other, I absorbed them both in middle school. So yeah, anyways, I do have this memory of feeling superior to the woman next to me on the plane because I was much younger than she was, and yet I was reading the classics. The kind of smug kid I was. Sorry. And I I remember the prose being a bit hard going. Like it wasn't that I couldn't understand it, but I had to work a bit. There were sections that caused me some trouble, and found the writing style on the whole a little bit boring. I didn't find it flowed very well. And this and one other book, I think it was The Day of the Comet, were the only other H.G. Wells books I read for a few years. And then when I was in college, I picked up The Island of Dr. Monroe. What is it? Moreau? The Island of Dr. Moreau. Yeah, you know the book I'm talking about. And that when I read that in college, that read very smoothly for me. And I think the difference was obviously just H.G. Wells was just a little bit above my reading level when I was still in 7th grade. But you know, by the time you finish high school, he's very readable. And then in my 30s, I belatedly got around to reading the original Time Machine and the original War of the Worlds, and loved them. The Time Machine especially. Just loved the story, although I already knew the story from those classics illustrated versions, but found that H.G. Wells' writing style was really very, very readable. Very good. So yeah, sorry, I'm rambling. All that is to say, that's my history with the Invisible Man. I don't really remember the content of this from when I was a kid. So I have those kind of memories of having read it, but essentially I'm approaching this as like a new read. I'm 28 pages into it now, and actually now that I've started to read it, I am beginning to remember things. I'm remembering how the story is told from the perspective of the other people at the inn, not the Invisible Man's perspective himself. Remembering something that I thought was frustrating as a kid, where the reader knows that this guy is invisible pretty much from page 1, because it's called The Invisible Man. But the people of the inn are just kind of slowly piecing together the clues. So it's one of those stories where you're a little bit frustrated as the reader because you just want the other characters to catch up to what you already know so that the story can progress. That was my feeling as a kid, at least. Reading it now, though, and again, I'm only a couple chapters in, but, you know, now that I'm no longer in 7th grade and now that I'm an adult, I think I really enjoy H.G. Wells' style. And like these quirky characters at the inn, and like the little gossiping they're having. I'm enjoying it so far, and I anticipate I'm hoping to keep enjoying it throughout. So yeah, that's my little introduction to The Invisible Man, and then I will catch you guys again after I finish the book for my review of it.